Okay, I wasn't able to highlight too much, whatever. We'll see as we go. Okay, we're on the bottom. What is next? The bottom of Yudal Amar Aleph.
Yeah. Nothing about the middle.
The bottom, one line up. So the subject is talking about that. We're on a side subject, it seems, that not about Los's go to do, but to the subject about Asu or Lo Asu. That we had a Machlokas B'Shamai and Beis Hillel. Did Beis Shammai actually practice what they held, or they just argued in the Beis Medrash? But once they left the Beis Medrash, so then they submitted to Beis Hillel. The Gemara said one or two reasons, either because even though Beis Hillel was the role, but Beis Shammai was Machad Ditfei, they hold that they're not outvoted just because they are more, because Beis Shammai themselves were smarter. And Beis Hillel also agrees Beis Shammai was smarter, but there's the robe over there. That's one reason why Beis Shammai might have given in to Beis Hillel halacha l'maisa, or because of the Baskol. That a Baskol came out and said halachas like Beis Hillel, but the Gemara says that possibilities that they didn't, either because they held Mechad Ditfei, so they're not overridden by the robe, or because they're in Meshkichim Baskol. So that's the sugi we are now. So far we brought one raya, one proof, and it says over there in the Mishnah, in the yellow it's highlighted that even though there's Machlokas B'Shamai and Beis Hillel, but they intermarried. And intermarriage, the Gemara explained that the Beis Shammai shouldn't be was not so concerned about Beis Hillel's marriages, because the worst it would have been, this case of Tzara's Erva, would have been that according to Beis Shammai they should have done Yibum, and according to Beis Hillel they did not, they married out. And what's so terrible? It's a Chai Ve'Lavan. So the children are kosher. We'll say later on that they're Pasal Lakuna, but they're still kosher to marry, not Mamzerim. But the other way, Beis Hillel, to marry into Beis Shammai, since according to Beis Hillel, a Tzara should not have married the Yavam, and if they do, it's marrying a brother's wife without a mitzvah, which is Chavi Krisos. The kid will be a Mamzer. So that's the was proof. There must have been that they didn't actually practice, even though they held that they should marry, but the Maisa, they didn't do it. Or else Beis Hillel wouldn't be able to marry into Beis Shammai. And the Gemara rejected this proof 3 lines up below that they informed them whenever there was a shidduch between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, and Beis Shammai knew that in that family this was the descendants of a Tzara Serva that is a mamzer according to Beis Hillel. They would tell them, according to you, it's a mamzer. According to us, it's our mamzer. We can marry within ourselves. But you should know that according to you, l'shitaschem, this is a mamzer, and therefore don't marry. So it's not a proof. The Gemara tried to bring a proof that Beis Shammai did not do according to their own opinion, but the Gemara rejected it, that it's not a proof. Well, up one line up from the bottom, this is also reasonable to say this way. So the Rishonim say that this is not a regular Lachanami Mistabra. We're not going to prove the point that they informed them, and in contrast to Beis Shammai, maybe didn't do it at all. We're not going to prove that. That's not going to be the proof. It's just going to be that they informed them and did not rely that they would have known on their own that this is a family of Tzara Serva, that's a mamzer. That's all the Gemara is going to say. That they used to tell them. The Tani Sefer that also besides marrying, also they would not hesitate to use each other's taras. That Beis Shammai trusted Beis Hillel if they say something is Torah, and Beis Hillel trusted Beis Shammai if they say something is Torah. Even though the Shittasam, some things were Tamid, they had Machloksin, so still they used to rely on each other for Tum and Tara. And again, the question
in this case?
That it's reasonable to say that they informed. This is we're going to support that they used to inform each other if they had any problem with Shittasam. The more says in Amad Beis, Allah. Amrit the Lomo Delu Bishlama Beis Hillel Bishami Beis Hillel. Now the Gist is a little difficult. Taisus changes it around. The idea is we'll say it outside with the ideas, and then we'll see it into the words. The point is going to be that Beis Shammai usually we go according to the simpler Girsa, not according to our Girsa. Beis Shammai is usually the one who's machmir more than Beis Hillel. So the question is, how could Beis Shammai rely on Beis Hillel's kashrus, as taharas? That if there are some things that Beis Hillel will say is tahor, but according to Beis Shammai is tamid. So how could they have eaten from them and relied on their Torah? It must be that Beis Hillel will tell them, according to you, this is not Torah. That's what the Gemara wants to say. It says on the top line that if you say that, they used to inform them, so then they were able to eat from each other. If they didn't tell them, now just change it around. I'm just going to change around the gears according Bishlama Beis Hillel could eat from Beis Shammai, the Temeos, the Beis Shammai, the Beis Hillel, the Horos now. Beis Hillel doesn't mind the Beis Shammai says something is tummy because that's even more machmir. If Beis Shammai says that it's Torah, then it's surely Torah according to us. Even if they say something is tummy, we hold that it's Torah, no problem. Ella, now that's changed on the fourth line now, it's changed it around. Ella Beis Shammai, mi Beis Hillel, lama laninu, taros, the Beis Hillel, the Beis Shammai, Temeos ninu. That's the concept that since Beis Shammai is more machmir than Beis Hillel, so Beis Hillel should not have been able, Beis Shammai should not have been able to eat from Beis Hillel because they would say that it's kosher and Torah, and really according to Beis Shammai, it's not. Alalav the modelu must be that they informed them that this, according to you, is not Torah. Shmamina. That's a good proof that they used to inform each other. Now, this doesn't prove that they informed them and did their opinion in contrast to not doing their opinion. If they didn't do it their opinion, then it also would have been simple that they didn't Lamai said they didn't rely on their own opinion. But we'll read the way the Rishonim explained that it's just coming to prove, as the Gemara is going to say in 2 lines, that they didn't rely, that they would know on their own. I'll try to scroll it as we go along because I can't point to it. Which, why do you have more? Why is it stronger? The word Ilem is strong. Alam is strong. Why is it stronger than the other one? It means both of them are the same proof. If they intermarried or they ate taras together, that shows that they must have informed each other. But Sarah Kola is La Kamash Malon. You might think that by the Tzara, they didn't have to inform them because everybody would have known that this family is a family of Tzara Sarah, which is a Mamzer according to Beis Shammai, and Beis Hillel didn't have to tell them. Kamash Malon, that Beis Hillel, how does it go? Beis Shammai wouldn't have to tell them. So the Kamash Malon know that they didn't rely on the Kol, and Beis Shammai would tell them if Beis Hillel want to make a shidduch, they would say that this shidduch is not a good according to you. Okay, that's the end of the Gemara. So the Gemara wanted to bring a proof that Beis Shammai did not do their opinion, did not practice their opinion, and the Gemara rejected it. It's not a proof. It could be they did, but if there be any clash, Lamaisa, so then they would tell them, Beis Shammai would tell Beis Hillel that this is not good according to you. I got the Gemara brought down in the discussion. The Gemara brought in Amar Aleph that we did yesterday. When is somebody a mamzer? When is somebody considered a mamzer? Is it from Chayve Misas Bezdin, the most extreme, even if it's going to be capital punishment, such a kind of a union that would have been a capital punishment, or even if it's going to be Chayv Kores, or there's also an issue about Chayve Lavan. There are 3 levels we're talking about of how Aser is a certain union. There's something Chayve Lavan that means that these people are not allowed to get married, but it's not Chayv Kores, it's just a law. We'll see what they are later on. Then there's Chayve Krisus, which is our subject mostly, that if someone transgresses intentionally, so the Chayv Kores, heavenly excision, and then there's Mrs. Bezdin, even capital punishment, Bezdin kills them. So the Gemara now talks about what's a mamzer. We paskin like the middle point that a mamzer is somebody who's chayve krisus. Even if it's not chayve Mrs. Bezdin, it's also chayve kores, but chayve lavan not. But the Gemara starts guf amar b'loza apish and echleku b'shama b'sil but saras smodim shei mamzer elo b'mi shei surah yisur erva. B'shama b'sil, even though they argue it's as far as soros, we'll see in a second what that means. Soros erva, but they both agree that a mamzer is only the result if there was a union of a chiv kores, Isser Eva Onish kores. And the one that says the sentence, the Chorah, is a very difficult sentence. It means even though they argue about Sarah Eva, if you should marry or not, but everybody agrees that it's not a mamzer because a mamzer is only if it's chayv kores. Man modim. How do you read the sentence? Somebody's moda that it's not a mamzer. If it's saying the Beis Shammai, even though Beis Shammai says that they should marry, and if they don't marry, means if they don't do yibum, and this woman, this Torah server, goes to marry somebody else, she leaves the family. She says, "I'm not yibum no chalitza." She goes to marry somebody else, which is called yevamos l'shuk. L'shuk means to the outside the crowd, anybody. She goes to marry somebody else, a stranger. So according to Beis Shammai, she's obligated to marry their brother-in-law for yibum, and she didn't. So it's called yevamos l'shuk. That's a lo saseh. Lo siyeh eish zamei sachut shel lezor, that the widow should not marry out. She should stay and marry the brother-in-law. So this relationship, if she's going to marry a stranger, so that's a chayve lavan. They transgress the love. That's surely not a mamzer. That's what the Gemara is asking. That the Brisa says that even though they hold Zoros Abbas, but still it's not a mamzer. Of course not. Not because it's not a mamzer because chayve kores. It's not a mamzer because it's only chayve lavan. Because it's only chayve lavan. I mean that's really what it says. That a mamzer is only chayve krisus, and less than that is not chayve lavan. But it's pshita. That's what we're saying. That it goes without saying. So what are you going to say? The opposite? That it means to say that Beis Hillel is not concerned. It's not a mamzer. It means Beis Shammai's marriages are not a mamzer according to Beis Hillel. The Gemara says it's not true. What happened? According to Beis Hillel, they're not allowed to do yibum. The Sarah is not allowed. I'll put on the chart. I have no chart today. This is just the thing we've been learning for many days already, but sometimes the visual aid does help. Here you have the two brothers. One of them married two wives, and one of the wives is an erba to the brother. Those are the two erbas. Is a daughter or whatever it might be. So now the question is the tzara. Could the live brother marry the co-wife? So Beis Shammai says you must either yibum or chalitza, but he still says you're not allowed to. So if they do marry, according like Beis Shammai says they should marry, so then according to Beis Hillel, that was chai v'korish. You're not supposed to do yibum, and the result of that union is going to be a mamzer. The other way, if she goes like Beis Hillel says, go out, marry whoever you want to, Beis Shammai will say, where are you going? There's yevamos, you're supposed to do yibum. So that's a chai v'lavin. Means the problem, according to Beis Hillel, if you do it like Beis Shammai, is much worse than the problem of a Beis Shammai if you do it like Beis Hillel. Because Beis Shammai says, do yibum. Beis Hillel says that's a mamzer if you're going to marry him, because chai v'krisus. Beis Shammai says, Beis Hillel says go out and marry anybody, you're free. But according to Beis Shammai, she should have gotten yibum or chalitza, and if not, then it's allowed to marry somebody else. But the result is not going to be a mamzer. Okay, that's the only chart we have for today. There's not. We'll do it again and again. Maybe we'll come back, but that's the only thing we'll be working with. So the Gemara wants to know how to read the Brisa. The Brisa says even though they argue about Saras Abbas, but it's not a mamzer. According to Beis Shammai, of course not a mamzer. It's only chai v'lavin. And according to Beis Hillel, it is taka mamzer. Ela Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai. That Beis Hillel, even though the model to Beis Shammai that it's not a mamzer, no, it's not true. He grew for chai v'krisus. That she is chai v'krisus because it's also to marry your brother's wife, chai v'krisus, and the kid is going to be a mamzer. So the Brisa can't say that Beis Hillel is not concerned. It's not a mamzer. There is an opinion, not a very popular opinion, but Rabbi Akiva, he holds that the result of a union of a chai v'lavin is also a mamzer. So according to that opinion, Rabbi Akiva would say that the children that are born from this yevamos l'shuk, if you do like Beis Hillel and this Saras ever goes to marry somebody else, so Beis Shammai will consider it a mamzer, because even though it's only a lav, it's only a lo sase, but the child of such a union is also chai v'korish. Kamash Malan, that we don't pass like a Bakiva, and Beis Shammai would not say that it's a mamzer, it's a chai v'lavin, that they should not have married, but if they did, the child is not a mamzer. So we had one proof that didn't work so far. We had one proof to say that Beis Shammai did not do the way they held. They didn't practice the way that they paskin preached, but that it sounds a little bit bad because he's supposed to. Yeah, it means that they held in the Beis Medrash. This is the way, but they gave it to Beis Hillel, so they submitted to Beis Hillel. So this is the first fact we wanted to bring, that they submitted to Beis Hillel, but the Gemara disproved that it's not a proof. It could be that they didn't submit, and there were such people doing like Beis Shammai. But if it happened, any shidduchim or any taras that he said they would say Beis Hillel, l'shitaschem, this is a mamzer, don't marry. This is tummy, don't need it. So no proof. Tashma, another proof. This also is going to be still with the subject about the marriages. Tashma. It says a brisa, which is very similar to the Mishnah that we said, but here is a brisa. A long list, about six or seven things that Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel argue about halachos about marriages. The first one we know, Taurus. Taurus is the first one that we know. That's our subject. Taurus ever. Do you do yibum? Beis Shammai says yes. Beis Hillel says no. There's one machlokis. There's another machlokis. Rashi doesn't even tell us what they are. He says, look, all over Shas, here's there, here's that. We're not going to go into it at all. But there's a list of things Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argue. So it says, even though there are many machlokis in as far as marriages, is it kosher or is it not kosher? But lanimnu Beis Shammai milis anoshim Beis Hillel, v'lo Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. They didn't refrain from marrying each other. Same as our Mishnah says. Here it says a little bit more. That there was love and friendship between them, even though there were two camps. That was only as far as the learning. They had machloksin, and there were two batei medrash. But as far as the friendship, they were mamish full friends. They intermarried, no problem. That you should love truth and peace. That's the brisa. The brisa continues a little bit more, and this is the main point now. So far, it's more or less what we learned. So far, it's the same as it says in the Mishnah. That if there was a definite case where the other camp did as they paskin, and then according to us, it's not kosher to marry, so they didn't marry. They knew for sure that this was something you're not allowed to marry. But they didn't hold back. They didn't hesitate. They didn't refrain from marrying a suffolk case. We're up to this, the word Amrit on the second line. That's what we're up to. We'll just finish the Bryce. That's what the Bryce is over. Before we go further in the Gemara's analysis, but I would like to I think it makes it easier to jump about 10 lines, and we'll come back again to continue the proof. But the Gemara starts, if you could go down to about 9 lines from the bottom, 3, 6, 9. 9 lines from the bottom, Umayshna. The first one on the line is Umayshna. We'll come back to the proof. But first, the Gemara analyzes the price. It says that they refrain from marrying a Vada, if they know for sure that it happened, but not from a Suffolk. And the Suffolk, Rashi says that some of these cases, we said there are 6 cases, more or less, that Besham will argue about marriage, Soros, Achoyos, Pundik. So some of the cases that one of them will say that it's also to marry is not because it's a definite problem, because it's a suspicion something might have happened. Like they slept together, he gave her after he wrote a get, or he gave a get, they slept together in the same hotel, the same inn. Maybe there was relations over there, we don't know. Some cases are fakers. But there's some cases that are Vada, that they hold that you're not supposed to marry, and they did marry. But anyway, it says that they refrained from marrying a Vadai problem, but they didn't refrain from marrying a Suffolk problem. But the Gemara says, why not? That even all the cases, if one says you're not allowed to marry, you're not allowed to marry. Even if the reason why you're not allowed to marry is based on a suspicion and not a definite, but you're not allowed to marry, you're not allowed to marry. So the Gemara says, the words that the Brisa means to say is that if they didn't know definitely, not that the Issa was an Issa based on a suspicion or Issa which is based on a definite. The point is, Menastam, that if they knew for sure there was this problem happened, that this marriage took place, so then they wouldn't marry her because they know that this, according to us, is a puzzle marriage. But if they didn't know, then they didn't hear anything, so then they did marry. And why? Why did they marry if they didn't hear any news that this marriage is not a good marriage? Because the Modi Lahu Parshi, because Beishamai or whatever would tell the other party, you can't marry this woman because this what happened. She's a Sarasebo, for instance. So Omai Kamash, the more just wants to know that there's no machlokas going on. Omai Kamash, all it's telling you is that they would inform each other if they had a problem, and they had love and friendship, and they intermarried. Hainu Reisha, it's the same as Tanakama. Tanakama said the same thing. There's no machlokas by Shimon and Tanakama. Tanakama also holds that Lo Nimnu means that when the Tanakama says that Lo Nimnu, the reason is because we said either because they didn't do it, those are the 2 possibilities, or at most it's going to be because they were modir, because they informed. But now you're saying that Reb Shimon also says the same thing. Tanakama, Reb Shimon also says that if they knew something happened, they would refrain from marrying. If they didn't know, they relied that the people told them. So there's no machlokas then. The same as Tanakama. The cooler Reb Shimon. You're right. There's no machlokas. There is no machlokas. Go back to the Brisa. It looks like there's a Tanakama and Reb Shimon. It's really all Reb Shimon. The whole Brisa here, from the beginning till Reb Shimon, is all the same. Reb Shimon is saying that the reason why they wouldn't intermarry is because they assumed that they could be secure and assume that if there was a problem in the marriage that they wanted to go through with, the Beishama would tell them. And if they didn't tell them, it was a proof that it didn't happen. So that's the end of the Brisa. And now, if we go to analyze it, we can go back now to the Amrit. It's on right after Reb Shimon. The last word on the line is Amrit. It's on top of the screen. Amrit b'shlama asu mishamachi nimnu. El Amrit lo asu amai nimnu. If it says that Reb Shimon says that if there was a Vadei problem, then they did refrain. If it was not known that there's a problem, so that they could assume that they were told about it. But that's Beferish saying that Beishamai practiced what they. Good proof. So this is a successful proof that Beis Shammai did practice the way that they paskin. The Gemara goes on as this like in parentheses. The Tizbra and he nam midasu v'shlama Beis Hillel nimnu mi Beis Shammai the chavi krisis ninu umamzer men the Beis Hillel el Beis Shammai amay nimnu mi Beis Hillel v'nei chavi lavan ninu kshem ninu. The Gemara is asking that even if there was a vada, it says if the nimnu were vada, it goes both directions. Beis Shammai didn't marry Beis Hillel if there was a problem over there. L'shitasam, Beis Hillel didn't marry Beis Shammai if there was a problem over there. So the Gemara says it doesn't understand. It's true, Beis Hillel cannot marry into Beis Shammai if it definitely happened. If Saras Erva happened, what does it mean? The Beis Shammai, if there's a Saras Erva in the Beis Shammai's case, so then they would say do Yibum, and according to Beis Hillel, the kid is in Mamzer. So it makes sense, he can't marry in. But Beis Shammai, why could they not marry to the camp of Beis Hillel? Even if they were told that there was a Tzoras Erva. What happened? In the camp of Beis Hillel, if there was a Tzoras Erva, we told them, don't do Yibum, don't do Chalitza, let's get married. So what's the result going to be? There's a child is going to be a Ben Chai Lavin. So it's only a Chai Lavin, the kid is a kosher. So so even if something definitely would have happened, what's Beis Hillel telling Beis Shammai? Beis Hillel has to tell Beis Shammai that he should know that something happened over here. nothing happened. Even if there was a Sarah Serba that went out and married a stranger, so the worst is going to be that the kid is a B'nei Chai B'Lavin and he's not going to be a mamzer. So why should Beis Hillel not marry into Beis Shammai? If it's possible to reduce the heat because it's just making everybody tired, like it's not useful. It has to be that it's not freezing, but it can't be that it's too comfortable. It's not the purpose. So the Gemara says that's the Gemara's kasha. Why should Beis Hillel not marry Beis Shammai? The Gemara answers, you're right that Beis Hillel had no problem to marry the children of the next generation of Beis Shammai because, I'm sorry, did I say it right? No, Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai had to be careful with mamzerim, but Beis Shammai didn't have to be careful not to marry the children of such a case of Tzara Serba because what happened? In the Beis Hillel camp, if there was a Tzara Serba, she married out to a stranger, and the kid is going to be B'nei Chai V'Lav, and no problem. There is no problem. The kid is not a mamzer. It just means that they will be careful not to marry the woman who's a Tzara Serba because Beis Shammai says that they're not allowed to marry the woman, not the children. The children are kosher children, but the woman herself, they would be careful not to marry because according to Beis Shammai, she has to do yibum. She has to have chalitza. So you can't just marry her because it's a Tzara Serba. Beis Hillel they can marry out. Beis Shammai holds you can't. So they would hold back not to marry the woman who was the Tzara Serba. But the child is not a problem because it's B'nei Chai V'Lavin. Those 6 lines we did already, and now we could continue 4 lines from the bottom, Toshma. So we finished already 2 proofs, and the first one was not a proof, second one was a proof that Beis Shammai Asu Kedibreim. Just to give a little overview of what's going to happen, we're going to go through 11 proofs about this question about did Beis Shammai do Kedibreim, did Beis Shammai practice what they held. And the second, let's give an overview, is that the second, which we did already, the 9th, the 10th, and 11th, the last 3 rights are going to be successful proofs. The rest of them are going to be rejected, not going to be good proofs. But it comes out, there are going to be 4 proofs that Beis Shammai did do the way that they held. And we're going to go through a cruise of many different issues to find a chluks Beis Shammai self if we could prove that Beis Shammai did the way they did. So far, the second proof was a raya that they did practice, and now we're going on to the third proof. Tashma, Dam Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Heichal Achazur Vachas B'Yisrael. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri was talking about the machlokus of Tzara Sabas. Again, the Tzara Serba, that you have this case that the dead brother has 2 wives. One of them is an erva that he cannot marry, and she has a co-wife. Is the yibum to the co-wife or not? Beis Shammai says yes. Beis Hillel says no. Beis Shammai says yibum no chalitza. Beis Hillel says no yibum no chalitza. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri wanted to say, what should we do? Heichal Achazur Vachas B'Yisrael. So I don't know exact translation of Revachas. Our scroll translates it as how should it be disseminated? How should we spread it amongst Am Yisrael? What should we paskin l'maisa about this machlokus? Should we do it like Beis Shammai? Should we do it like Beis Hillel? Nasik Beis Shammai have a lot of mamzer. They're Beis Hillel. If we do like Beis Shammai, we'll paskin that they should do yibum. Beis Hillel says you're making mamzerim. This is a chayvei krisas and the kid is a mamzer. Can't do that. Nasik Beis Hillel should make a takana to do like Beis Hillel that they should marry out. Havlat pogum Beis Shammai. That it's so. Rashi says that even though we said before that chayvei lavan is not a mamzer. It's true, it's not a mamzer, but it is a pogum. Rashi says pogum means that it's like a cholo that's puzzle to kuna, that the child is not allowed to marry into the kuna. It's like a chalola. So this we have to remember that even according to Beis Shammai, the kid is not a mamzer, but it would be considered a pogum puzzle to kuna. But anyway, we're saying that we can't just make to do like Beis Hillel and marry out, because according to Beis Shammai, that it's a lav. Lo siya eshes hamisa chutza lizo. She shouldn't marry out. She's obligated to yibum. So the kids, besides that avera, but also the kids are going to become pigumim, pasal tekuna. So we're making problems. So I have an eitzah. We had this quoted before. Before it was quoted before in Dafkid Gimel. Bo and atakin lehem letzoros sheyu cholzos v'lo misyamos. Let's make a takana that everybody should be happy. That let's tell them to do chalitza. According to Beis Shammai, chalitza is enough. According to Beis Hillel, you don't need chalitza, but okay, so you do chalitza. What's going to happen? And we'll say that she's supposed to marry Cohen, which is like a grusha. She'll get the shidduch, even not marrying a Cohen. So maybe that'll be an eitzah to satisfy everybody. But lo speaku ligmas adobar shenichu for asha, but they weren't able. They were going to paskin that, but it didn't work out. Nichu for asha usually means like the time something happened, and therefore they weren't able to do it. The Gemara seems to say that the Shimon Gamliel is the one who maybe stopped it, or maybe I don't know if it means that was the thing that stopped it, or something else stopped it. Then Shimon Gamliel says it's good we didn't do that. But anyway, Shimon Gamliel is not happy with the takana of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri wanted to say do chalitza, and that'll solve the problem. But Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said no, it's a dangerous solution. If you're going to say that you have to do chalitza, I mean, still now there's machlokas Beis Shammai still. Beis Shammai says do yibum or chalitza. Beis Hillel says do nothing. You can marry out. And it says, what are we going to do for the tzoros rishonos miyata? What are we going to do to the ones before this takana? It means, this is a new takana. We're going to make a new takana to do chalitza. But before that, they didn't have this takana. Which means that if you did like Beis Hillel, they just married out. They married out to the shuk, yevamos shuk. Make sure I got this right. Does see Rashi over here? Oh no, so Rashi says that the problem would be that some people, Rashi says at this point, the Gemara is saying that what we're going to do for the original ones means people that did marry, people that like Beis Shammai. That's what the Gemara is going to prove now, that people that like Beis Shammai and their marriages that went through, that there was a marriage of a tzoros erva to the Yavam, and according to Beis Shammai, the kids are mamzerim. So Shema Gamliel is protesting, don't do this takana to make the do chalitza, because that's establishing that the halacha is that you cannot do yibum, and if you did yibum, it says mamzer. Again, if we're going to say that the tzoros erva should not do yibum, they should do chalitza. So that's a little bit of a declaration that if someone did yibum, it was not supposed to have been done, and the kid is going to be a mamzer. So Shema Gamliel was concerned that we shouldn't make mamzerim. It's like motzi las on those Harishonim, that if we're going to make now that you cannot do yibum, that means that those that did do yibum were declaring them mamzerim. So he didn't hold to make this as an eitzah. If it actually happened that there were such people that did yibum, like Beis Shammai, also Beis Shammai practiced what they held, and they therefore did yibum. So then he said, there's a problem. There are kids are out there that you're now going to declare them as mamzerim. Ella, if they didn't do it, but if they never practiced what they said, so there are no people that are mamzerim of Beis Shammai's school, because Beis Shammai didn't actually carry it out. They didn't do yibum. So this is a proof that they also could have been, that they must have done. There were people that did yibum, and the kids are mamzerim according to this new takana. And that's why they don't make this new takana. But the Gemara rejects this proof. We're not talking about that there are kids that already exist that are a result of the union of the yibum that Beis Shammai would have held. No, Beis Shammai didn't do l'maisa. They didn't say to do it. But that's talking about that they are tzoros erva. They are widows right now. They didn't marry yet, but they're holding. Those are in limbo. They don't know what to do. Should they marry to the shuk without yibum machalitza? Should they do yibum machalitza? And those are the ones that Rabbi Nuri was talking about. And Rav Shimon Gamliel said that if you can make a takana to do chalitza, what are we going to do to the tzoros? Now, what does that mean? The tzoros, not the next generation, not their own limbo. The ones who had done like Beis Hillel. The ones who had done like Beis Hillel, and what did they do? They married out. Not the ones Beis Shammai didn't do like they hold. The ones of Beis Hillel had a problem. Beis Hillel said they can marry out. Now we're going to make a new takana. It's going to come out in the news. A new takana that all tzoros erva have to do chalitza. This one was already married a couple of years. Let's say she did like Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel says marry out. She married out, and now comes out a new declaration from Sanhedrin that you have to do chalitza from the old brother-in-law. She's already married to a new husband, and nowadays what's going to happen? She has to go to Beis Din to get chalitza from the old brother-in-law, and she's been married already 5 years. The husband is going to be very upset. You're saying, in other words, that I shouldn't have been married for the past 5 years. And the Gemara says that's going to be that his wife is going to become disgusting upon him. So he's going to be feeling like I've been living with a woman that was really not supposed to. I wasn't supposed to, as a lav, to marry her. So that's what the Gemara was concerned. Not because Beis Shammai did like they did. Beis Hillel did like they did, that like they held. What should those women, not the next generation, that's not a problem. The question is the tzoros, not the next generation of Beis Shammai. They didn't do anything according to Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai didn't do what they held, but Beis Hillel did what they did. And now you're going to make a takana. You're going to tell them to do chalitza in order to satisfy Beis Shammai. They're going to become disgusting to their men, to their husbands. They married out already, and now you're going to tell them that they need chalitza. And you're going to say, what's the problem? They're only nimas, but everything's kosher. The ways of the Torah are sweet, and the Torah is not going to make such a takana that they should have to do chalitza after they were married already. So the Gemara rejected the proof. It's not a raya that Beis Shammai did like the words. That's not what the words meant. When we said that Madnasa L'Tzoros Rishonos Mayata wasn't because Beis Shammai did what they preached. It was that Beis Hillel did what they preached, and that's going to be the problem if we're going to say they have to do chalitza. So that raya was rejected. Tashma, another proof. The same thing about Tzoros Abasto. The Amar Abtafan, I pronounce this, Ta'evani, I desire. He was from the school of Beis Shammai. Abtafan was from Talmidei Beis Shammai, and he said that I'd like to do like Beis Shammai. That's what the words seem to say. Ta'avani, I desire, Masai, Tavot, Torah, Savas, Liyadi, Vesena. If this would happen to me, I'd like that this should happen to me. Of course, it doesn't mean to say that somebody should die without children and Chalitza and his own daughter over here. It doesn't mean to say that. But those are the words he meant. That's the expression he said, that I so much hold like this Shita that if it would happen, I would do it. What does that mean? If he would have a daughter who married his brother, if Reb Tarfon would have a daughter who married his brother, and another wife, a co-wife, and the brother would die without children, and the daughter would fall to him to Yibum, but she's an Erba, and the co-wife would be in question of Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, should he marry the co-wife? And Reb Tarfon said, Halavai, that should happen, that I should be able to marry her, to do like Beis Shammai. It doesn't mean to say that he hopes the story happens. Nobody hopes such a story should happen. But it means to say that I would pass like Beis Shammai and marry him. So it says beferish that Beis Shammai acted upon their preaching. Not that they just said that's the halacha. They did that, and they would actually do it. But the more is matra, change, put one unit over there. The word asana, which means I will marry her. Asiyana means I will marry her off. I will permit her to marry. But what does that mean? I will permit her to marry to the shuk, like Beis Hillel. I would pass. Beis Shammai says that I would permit her without any yibum, without any chalitza. I'd marry like Beis Hillel says. Not like I do like Beis Shammai. I would do like Beis Hillel to say that she's allowed to marry without yibum or chalitza. He says that I wish it would happen. What's the chiddush over there? Everyone's doing like Beis Hillel. So what is the chiddush that he says I would do it l'maisa? Everyone's doing like Beis Hillel. We had before on the bottom of the page, Rav Yochanan wanted to make a takana that they should do chalitza. Top of the page, that they should do chalitza in order to satisfy both opinions. Do chalitza. Don't let her marry somebody out only if she does chalitza from the brother-in-law. So I would like to paskin l'maisa that you don't need chalitza even. Don't even do chalitza. Just marry out because Allah is like Beis Hillel without any chash Beis Shammai at all. Tashma. Also, still another story about Yibum. The same thing again, but now we get some names over here. Ma'aseh bebito shel Rav Gamliel shoyis nesu ala Abba Achim. Rav Gamliel had a daughter. This was a real story, not just a theoretical story. Rav Gamliel had a daughter, was married to his brother. The brother's name was Abba. So two brothers, Rav Gamliel and Abba. And Abba married Rav Gamliel's daughter. Umeis below banim. Abba, the brother of Rav Gamliel, died without children. He also had another wife. Just put on the screen just for you don't need it, but just to get the names here. That one of the red is Rav Gamliel. The one that died is Abba, two brothers, and he had a daughter. That's Rav Gamliel's daughter. And when Abba, the brother, died, Rav Gamliel married the tzara. That's what it says, and that means he did like Beis Shammai. So it says the Maisa. We're talking about the whole discussion is the Beis Shammai the Maisa do. Here it says the Maisa he did it. Toshma Maisa bebito shel Rav Gamliel shoyis nesu ala Abba Achiv umeis below banim v'yibam Rav Gamliel asarasa. So it says openly that they did the Maisa. They did like Beis Shammai. It wasn't only theoretical in the Bismedrash. It was the Maisa. But the Gemara says you can't take the story literally. For Tisbra Rav Gamliel mitamid Beis Shammai is Rav Gamliel from the school of Beis Shammai. He's mamash from the Yichus lineage of Beis Hillel. So he didn't do like Beis Shammai. If anything, Beis Shammai did it, but Rav Gamliel didn't do it. So he should have told the Torah to go marry out. So the story can't be understood simply. The story was that the daughter was an islandess. She was a sterile, and that's why he was able to marry the Tzara Sabbas, because even according to Beis Hillel, that's the first Mishnah, that if it's found, we'll talk about the two sugyas, but let's say it was found. But when Abba married her, he didn't know that she's an islandess. And then he found out that she's an islandess. It comes out as Kedushay Tos, the whole thing's a mistake, and it's not a marriage, and he only has one wife. The Tzara is the single wife, the lone wife, and that's why Rabbi Gamliel was allowed to marry her, because there is no Tzara Sabbas. But the Gemara says that can't be. First of all, we just pushed away the whole point of Beis Shammai. It's not the story. It wasn't because he married her because of Beis Shammai. He married her because even according to Beis Hillel, he's allowed to marry her because she wasn't a Tzara Serva. But the Gemara says that's not the pshat over there. That's the next point. If you look in the Brisa, it says Rabbi Gamliel married his daughter, and the Chacham say the story was that she was an islandess. So it's a machlokus. The Chacham say she was an islandess, but the Tanakhama says she was not an islandess. That means Tanakhama says he did like Beis Shammai. So you can't push me off and say that the case was she was an islandess. That's only the second opinion. The first opinion holds that she was not an islandess, and still he married her. That means he did like Beis Shammai. The Gemara says, so I said the Gemara is, so we had this talk a couple of days ago, and I think Moshe at the time had brought it up. When he got married, when Abba got married, did he know that she's an islandess or not? So we said, if he did not know she's an islandess, then everybody holds that the marriage is off from Afreya. In retrospect, it was no marriage at all, and therefore the other tzara is the lone wife. She's not together with anybody else. And then surely, but the Gemara brought in the subject about hikibah, that when the brother married her, he knew she was an islandess, and it's a good marriage. And that the Gemara said, that we would think that the tzara should be also because she's an islandess, she's a real marriage and married to the brother, and now she's an erva, and the other one is the tzara's erva. But the Gemara over there said there's a machlokus about this point that some hold that, and we paskin that halacha seems to be a Yochanan, I think Abasi, I forgot who that was at the end. I think Rava was the one at the end that said that Saras, that the islandess, even if she was known to be an islandess, she's not in the parsha of Yibam at all. The fact that the whole purpose of Yibam is in order to have children, but if there's no possibility to have children, so she's not, the Torah didn't tell her to do Yibam at all. So now when you have two wives and one wife is an islandess, the other one is not, is a regular childbearing woman, so then the only one that falls to Yibam is only the Tzara and not the daughter, not because of Kedushay Tos. And that's what the two opinions in the Brisa. The first opinion in the Brisa says that the reason why she could do Yibam to the Tzara, who holds what? I forgot who holds what according to this. Let's look at Rashi over here. That Tanakama holds the only reason why he was allowed to marry her is because it was a mistake. That's what Rashi says. The Tanakama dafka the lo hikaba who davi mekachtos avol hikaba tzarasa asur. Tanakama says that the reason why he was allowed to marry her, his tzaras abbas, is only because the daughter was not a good marriage, because he didn't know about it. His brother didn't know that his daughter was an islandess. But Acherim say that even if he would have known, because the Ktani Hoysa, a Ktani Nimseis. Like we said, that how does Acherim say? Acherim say, where's Acherim? Islandess Hoysa, the first one on the line, Islandess Hoysa, not Nimseis islandess. So Acherim are coming to say that even if he knew that she was an islandess also, the Tzara, the co-wife, would be able to marry Rav Gamliel because the islandess, the daughter, did not come into the parsha of Yibum, not because it's not a marriage, but because it's not B'chaya B'char Tele. So the Gemara is still being matched. There's nobody holds like Beishama. Everybody's going like Beisilel, and still Rav Gamliel was able to marry the Tzaras Abbas. The Gemara says another two pshatim of how come Tanakama would have held that Rav Gamliel could marry the Tzaras of his daughter, even though it was not a case of a islandess. Means Acherim is the one who says it was an islandess story, but Tanakam has other reasons. We had the sugi before. We spoke about if he divorced her. We had a machlokis. When does he have to divorce the erva in order that the tzaras erva should be mutter? Our Mishnah says, the lenient opinion, that as long as he divorced her before he died, even though they were simultaneously married at the same time, but since he divorced her before he died, so, but b'shas nefila, misam apelas, at the time that he dies, so then only the tzaras erva is falling to Yibum, the daughter is not, and therefore it's not a tzaras erva. And the other opinion, Acherim say no, that even if he divorced her before he married, since they were married at the same time, he didn't divorce her before he got married to the second wife, so that would prohibit the tzaras erva from marrying because nisum harishonim apilim. So therefore he says the case was that she was an islandess. And the third teretz, yesh tanai b'bia ikibunai. This machlokes, if someone, this Rashi example, we didn't have it yet, it's going to be much later on in the Masechta, if someone got married on a condition. He said it to the woman, I'm marrying you on a condition, so and so, whatever the condition might be. And it comes out, and he married her, mama, she had relations, and then it comes out that the condition was not fulfilled. It wasn't like whatever she said. She said that she's a kach v'kach, and really she's not. And then the question is, does a marriage nullified retroactively? There was no such marriage. I made a condition. The condition wasn't fulfilled. So this is machlokas. Some say that when he actually comes to have relations, when he gives her a ring, okay, that's a conditional. Only I'm giving you a ring, but only on the condition that whatever the case might be. But if he actually had relations already, so then a person doesn't want to have relations with a woman that he's not definitely married to. It's going to come out, maybe he's not married to her. Retroactively, he has had relations with a non-married woman. He doesn't want to do that. Then he does that, even though I made a condition, but he decides to marry her unconditionally. That's one opinion. And then it becomes a good marriage. It's not a mekachtos. And others say, no, yesh tanai b'bia, that even though he had relations, bia means relations. But still, he makes the condition, and he means it seriously. He doesn't retract it. And if the condition was not true, whatever deal he made, so the marriage is off. And he had relations with a woman that was not married, not a terrible averis. That's not like Isha Sish. She was a penuya. She wasn't married. So that's a machlokis. So Tanakama says the reason the case of Rabbi Gamliel with his brother was that there was a certain condition, whatever the condition was, and the condition was not met. Tanakama says that it's enough to nullify the marriage, and therefore the daughter was not married, and therefore Tzaras Abbas, he could have married. Rabbi Gamliel married the Tzara. And the other opinion, I say no, that the condition ain't an that the condition, once he had relations, he was mevater on the condition, and it would have been a good marriage. to the daughter. So how come Rav Gamliel was able to marry the co-wife? Because she was an islandess. The daughter was found to be an islandess. But the wire is getting out of it that nobody says like Beis Shammai. That's not the point. Rav Gamliel didn't do like Beis Shammai to marry. So it's about if the daughter a regular marriage. It has to be that the marriage was off somehow, either islandess or some way, or a tribe of beer, or what do we say? Kind of self-girish. There will be a case why she was divorced. Something that should have been mutter even according to Silo, but there's no proof that Beis Shammai says that someone did like Beis Shammai. The more continues. Now that I think that we finished more or less with the proofs of Yibum. All the things we're doing now, more or less with Yibum, Tzara. Now we're going on. Now we're going broader. We're zooming out and looking at the whole chance to see, could we bring a proof to Beis Shammai Beis Hillel that Beis Shammai did like their opinion, like they actually did. They practiced the way that they held. So it seems to be machlokes, and all the machlokes of Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, not only the case Tzara, anything. Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai argued that they actually do what they held. So we're going on. We know two B'Shvat, Tesvav B'Shvat is considered the new year of the things that are growing as far as Meiser, or how does it go by the trees of Orla and Meiser. I think Meiser the two B'Shvat. So there's machlokas about that. In the first mission in Rosh Hashanah, if it's tu B'Shvat, according to Beis Shammai say the first day of Shvat. The first day of Shvat is the new year. So things that grow between the first of Shvat and the 15th of Shvat is a machlokas. According to Beis Shammai, is the new year. According to Beis Hillel, it's the old year. And that has ramifications about the Maasros, which year of Maaser it is, or you're not allowed to be Maaseh Mishana Lashana. So it says that Rabbi Akiva, he had something, Liked Esrog, on the first of Shvat, which according to Beis Shammai is the new year. According to Beis Hillel is the old year. But not about basis. He did two kinds of Maaser. Let's say between the year of Maaser Sheni and Maaser Rani, we know that the third and sixth year of the Shemitah cycle is Maaser Rani. The first, second, fourth, and fifth is Maaser Sheni. So which Maaser does it chayvin? So he didn't know. It's machlokes. B'Sham Yisrael. He wanted to be machmer for both opinions, and he did two Maaseros. One is if it's the old year. One is like Beis Hillel, and one is if it's the new year, like Beis Shammai. So you see that people did like Beis Shammai, don't you see? You see people did like Beis Shammai. Or else it's only in the Besmedrash. Once you go out in the street into the field, you don't do it like Beis Shammai. Don't you see? Shvami no asu. So you see that you did according to the opinion that of Beis Shammai. The Gemara says no, it's not the Pshat. Rabbi Akiva Gemara is topic late. But Yoda Beis Hillel Bechad B'Shvat Amor Abetesva B'Shvat Amor. He didn't want to do like Beis Shammai. He wanted to do like Beis Hillel, but he wasn't sure who holds what. Is Beis Hillel the one who says tu B'Shvat? Is Beis Hillel the one who says Echad B'Shvat? So he didn't do it because of Beis Shammai. He said because I don't know what Beis Hillel holds. So it's no proof. Next kasha. Moshe, this is a question from Sukkah. Moshe B'Sutra. Moshe Yod the Kalosa Shel Shammai Zakin L'Tiches Es Hamaziba V'Sich Chalgab B'Shvul Katan. They still holds that the Katan Shelo Gil Chinuch is not chayiv in Sukkah. You don't have to be mechanech a child if he's not of age that he's able to be himself in the Sukkah without his mother at night. But here it says Shammai held that yes, that even a young child also is chayiv in Sukkah, even though he's too young to be without his mother. And it says that Shammai's daughter-in-law gave birth, and the grandfather, Shammai, he made a hole in the roof of where the baby was, and they should be. I put sukkah in order he should be in the sukkah. He was in the bedroom with his mother, but he made that the bedroom should be a sukkah also for the baby. So it means he actually did. You see that he actually did what he holds, and not that it just wasn't a bismedrash. He practiced what he held. So isn't that a good proof? There, the onlooker, the observer, is not going to think that he's doing halacha to be machmer and sukkah. He thinks maybe they want more air in the bedroom. They want it to be more airy, so they made a hole in the roof. Nowadays, people don't do that, but they made a skylight, whatever the point is. So it probably wasn't such a strong house. But the point is to say that you didn't see that he's doing it because of the halacha. Very interesting point. This Gemara and the Gemaras, it sounds like the whole reason why Beis Shammai would be lowest Ketuvayim is because it shouldn't look like they're doing Losas Godudim. This is, to me, this is a problematic Gemara. I have a question on this Gemara because it seemed the whole time we were talking, not because of Losas Godudim. The whole discussion we're having, the a page already, if Beis Shammai did like their own opinion, is because maybe Beis Hillel's the rove, or because the Maskal came out and said that the Lach is like Beis Hillel. So it has nothing to do with Losas Godudim. Yesterday we had a problem. Losas Godudim was not a reason why Beis Shammai should give in. Maybe Beis Hillel should give in. We said the whole issue of the Gemara is talking about that they didn't do their opinion because Beis Hillel is the rove, or there's a Maskal. And here the Gemara is saying that the issue is Losas Godudim, and if it doesn't look like Losas Godudim, if you don't see two Torahs, so then there's no problem. So here it says Beis Shammai didn't mind to do like that because it didn't look like it's a machlokas. They just thought no one realizes doing a sukkah, even though you put schach on top. Okay, you wanted it should be protected, but not because of a sukkah. They didn't realize that it's a sukkah. So I'm confused in this Gemara because this Gemara and also the Gemara coming up, it seems to say that the whole issue is if it looks bad, and I don't understand because the Gemara said the reason why Beishamai wouldn't do like their opinion is because they're the mir, or because the Baskol said that Allah is like Beis Hillel. So I'm stuck over here. If anybody could help out, I'd appreciate it. So the Gemara says that there's no proof that Beishamai would do like they hold, even if it's against, even if it shows and it's obvious and the machlokes and it's shtei agudos. They only did it when it didn't look conspicuous. Maser Mazur, another kasha. This goes into Kvos. It says on the side Mishnah. Ma'aser b'shokas yehu shoyse b'Yerushalayim v'ayse nekubah l'mikvah v'chol tar shoyim Yerushalayim nasem agaba v'shalchu b'Shamai v'erchivua. There was I don't know the details exactly, but there was some kind of a stone, a hollowed out stone. Shokas is that, how do you call the place where the animals eat from, where they drink from? A trough. So, and it was connected to mikvah. The whole issue about was what I don't get it clear, but the point was that the connection between the showcase and the mikvah was a hole, and we learned before that in order to connect mikvahs, it has to be open a certain amount, and this is the question: how big does the hole have to be? So we said about a shvaferas hanod, which comes up again. The Gemara to say that now. We had this before on Chagiga. So shvaferas hanod means when you have a jug, and you want to make a spout, so it has to be open a certain amount, and it says that it has to be the diameter that will be able to fit 2 fingers in. It should be able 2 fingers that you should be able to turn back. It should be berevach. It should be rumi to be able to turn 2 fingers. But Beis Shammai holds that it has to be bigger than that. According to Beis Shammai, the connection of the 2 mikvos is not considered a connection, only if it's much bigger. So here it says it was a story. There was such a showcase. It's called Shekus Yehu for some reason. That was in Yerushalayim, and the hole that was making it kosher, or the mikveh next to it making it kosher, was a hole, which it says in a second that it was the size of a shvaferas hanod. And the Mishnah it says, and all the times that were made in Yerushalayim, they used to use that mikveh. That mikveh was the popular mikveh in Yerushalayim. And the hole that was making it kosher was a small hole that Beis Hillel holds is good enough. But Beis Shammai held there wasn't enough. Shammai says that hole is not big enough to combine the 2 mikvos. You have to have tipachas ruba, that most of it should be opened up. A big, huge hole that most of it should be opened up. So utnan even mikvos kishperes hanod dovio b'chalala kishtei etzvos chozos l'mkoman. This is the opinion of Beis Hillel that the way to mix 2 mikvos is by a small hole the size of a shvaferas hanod, which means the thickness of the shvaferas itself plus the space in the middle means the hole plus the whole ring, the ring plus the hole in between, which is the width of 2 fingers that should be able to turn back and forth. Anyway, what do you see? Beis Shammai Lamaisa did it. Beis Shammai said that they wanted to have a mikvah that was kosher according to their opinion, and they made the hole should be bigger. If you say Beis Shammai didn't do it like their opinion, so they're getting mixed up. They're getting involved in making a machlokus. And the way the Gemara is going to say is agudas. The Gemara said, over there, you don't see them making machlokes because maybe that's why the water should flow more. They don't see that they're doing it halachically. Again, the whole thing of is only when halachically you see that they're making machlokes, they hold the chumrah. But if they're doing it in a way that no one can tell, like I said before, Beis Shammai made a hole in the roof. Maybe he's making it should be more airy, making a skylight. But if it would be noticeable that they're making machlokes, they wouldn't do that. Here too, it wasn't noticeable that they're making the hole bigger because they want the mikveh to be kosher. It was kosher before. They wanted to make it bigger, that it should be the water flow should be more fast running. But to make more, lafusha laharbot. So there's no proof that Beis Shammai did like the rain. If it would be on the cheshbon of making machlokes, making a shtei agudas. Tashma, Dam Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Sadik, Kishisi Lam Mitoris Rabbi Yochanan Achavani, Reisi Shaya Ochel Pas Chareva B'Melach, B'Shnei Bazoros. Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Sadik says, I was learning Torah Rabbi Yochanan Achavani, and it was a famine, and he had nothing to eat. He ate dry bread with salt, like nothing. So I told my father that the Rebbe has nothing to eat. But I told my father Rabbi Sadik, Amali Holach Lozeisen, take him olives. He has nothing to eat, only has bread. Take olives. So Lachti though, and I took olives to him. He saw that they were moist, which means he was concerned, even though it was a family and nothing to eat, but he was concerned that they might have been tummy. Even though he got it from Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Sadik, but maybe it wasn't tahor. And he only ate things that he would know were not mukhshal kabul tumah, in order that it shouldn't be a question of tummy. So he saw that they were moist, they became wet. So he didn't want to eat, but he didn't. He just said, I don't need olives. He wanted to avoid issue. He said, I don't need olives. It's a family starving. That's not saying I don't like olives, but he said, I don't need olives. Not good for me. Whatever. But the father realized that it's because he was machmir. I came and told my father that he doesn't need the olives. He knew that the reason why I wasn't eating it is because that it became mukhshal l'kabel tuma. So he said, you don't have to worry. Tell him not to worry that it was wet, but it was in a way that it wouldn't make it mukhshal l'kabel tuma. So here it talks about a machlokes, like right away we'll read it. This is a case where Beis Hillel is more machmir than Beis Shammai. Usually Beis Shammai is more machmir. Here Beis Hillel is more machmir. Beis Shammai says that if you have these olives that are in a barrel, Mugugalim. I'm not sure what the word Mugugalim means. Does Rashi say Mugugalim? Rashi says basically Rashi says they were crushed together. They were getting probably ready to squeeze the olive oil from them. And Beis Shammai says that it doesn't become mukhshal l'kabel tuma even if there's no hole in the barrel. If there's a hole in the barrel, that shows you don't want it to collect the liquid. It could have been that it was the liquid of the olives themselves, maybe the mohel hayotze, the liquid of the olives doesn't make it mukhshal l'kabel tuma. So if you show that you don't want it, you don't care about the liquid, like you make holes in the kli that it could drip out, so that is not mukhshal l'kabel tuma. Beis Hillel says you have to have holes. If it's a chavos nekuva, here goes. Beis Shammai says ein tzrich l'nakev, even if it doesn't have any holes, it's not mukhshal l'kabel tuma. Beis Hillel says not if it has holes. Only if it has holes is it not machshir the olives. Then it says but everyone agrees that if it had a hole, and the only way it had a hole, so even Beis Hillel should be happy, even though it got stuffed up with sediments. That's the sediment stuffed up the hole. So you might think that according to Beis Hillel, it's not anymore considered a hole, and it's considered mukhshal l'kabel tuma. Says no. Even Beis Hillel agrees that if the hole just got stuffed up with sediments, it's still considered a hole, and it's not mukhshal l'kabel tuma. In other words, Rabbi Sodik sent back to Rabbi Yochanan Acharonis. You think that since it's wet, that means that it was collecting the liquid, and that means it didn't have a hole. And if it didn't have a hole, according to Beis Hillel, it's mukhshal l'kabel tuma. That's why I didn't want to eat it. No, it's true that it wasn't leaking out, but that's only because the sediments were stuffing up the hole. And even Beis Hillel holds that's considered a good hole. Okay, so what does it say over here? That there were people. What does it say here? The Beis Shammai there were Beis Shammai people that would have been meko, that it would not be considered mukhshal l'kabel tuma, even if it did not have a hole. And Beis Hillel was machmir. That's the end of the brayso now. The brayso does ends off. Even though was the school of Shammai, he says the case where Beis Shammai was Meko. Beis Shammai held that it's not mukhshal l'kabel tuma even if it did not have a hole. Did anybody do like that? If the people of Beis Shammai practiced what they held and they said that it was not mukhshal l'kabel tuma even though it does not have a hole, so he was special that he was machmir like Beis Hillel that it has to have a hole. But if nobody did like Beis Shammai, means everybody was machmir. It wouldn't have been an issue of like some people. Rabbi Elazar Harani was scared they did like Beis Shammai. No one does like Beis Shammai. On the top to say lo asu, Beis Shammai themselves didn't do it like themselves. So my Rav say, what's the chiddush? Rabbi Yochanan Harani did like Beis Hillel. Is a raya that everybody that Beis Shammai did according to their own opinion. They did practice what they held. Adkan, it is a good proof. That's a good proof. And the Gemara, this is now. I think we said according to our count, this is the 9th proof. Many of them went down. So far, we only had the 2nd proof and now the 9th proof. The 2nd and the 9th. This is the 9th. There's going to be 2 more proofs, 10 and 11. These proofs for now are going to work. That Beis Shammai also could have brain. Beis Shammai did actually practice what they held. Toshma, Sholos Abishua, Soros Abbas Mao. The S Abishua, what's the din of Soros Abbas? Back to our Mishnah. I forgot that it comes back to our Mishnah again. Soros Abbas. Again, you have the case of the 2 brothers. One of them, and the dead brother married a relative of the live brother and also a co-wife, and he died, and the brother cannot marry the relative, but there's married Soros Abbas. Beis Shammai says yes, Beis Hillel says no. So he said, it's machlokas. What do you do, Soros Abbas? Machlokas. Beis Shammai says you do yibum, Beis Hillel says you go free. They asked Abishuri Paskin like, if they matter, Moshe ben Shtei Harim Gedolim ben Shtei Machlokas Gedolos ben Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Why are you getting me involved in this big machlokas, 2 big mountains? Big machlokes, like leave me out. I'm scared they're going to crush my skull. If I'm going to say an opinion, they're going to kill me. Why? We'll see why. Why is he scared? He's scared of the people that are not going to like one of the ways that he paskins. Aval ani made lachem. So he didn't want to answer for Perish, but then he's going to say, but his testimony like Vesila. And he made ani lachem al shtei mishpachas gedolah shayim Yerushalayim. I testified there were two big families in Yerushalayim, and the names are Mishpachas Beis Tfuah Miben Achmoy and Mishpachas Beis Kupoy Miben Lekoshesh, whatever the names are. Shem Bnei Tzoros. They are descendants of women that were co-wives to and they got married. They didn't. They got married to the shuk, like Beis Hillel says they can get married. And this is mishpach of Kohanim, and they were working in the Beis Hamikdash, and that means that even though according to Beis Shammai, they should not be kosher lakuna. The halach is like Beis Hillel. Let me just make sure I got it right. Yes, that there were people, even though I don't want to pass it, but you should know there's a story. I'm not saying anything, but you see that in Yerushalayim they did like Beis Hillel, that even though they got married without any chalitza, the kosher lakuna, even according to Beis Shammai, would have been possible. So we see the halachas like Beis Hillel.
Who is this person?
I'm not sure who you're asking
Who
on.
is this person who's sitting in one of us?
Rabbi Yeshua. Yeah, but that's the end of the verse. I was analyzing it. If Beis Shammai did what they paskin, and that means that people did yibum to a tzaras ha'erva. So then the kids are mamzerim, and those Rabbi Yeshua was scared of those mamzerim. If Rabbi Yeshua is going to declare the halachas like Beis Hillel, he's saying that this whole family is mamzerim. But if no one ever did it, if Beis Shammai themselves, even though they held so theoretically, but the Lamai said they didn't act upon it, so there are no such mamzerim, no such people that are angry. Why should anybody crush his skull? Again, if you say that Beis Shammai acted, but Bishlama Asu had to become a Messiah, that's why he was scared, because there are people that are labeled Amam Zerim. Eliyamet Lo Asu, but if Beis Shammai never practiced it, I might become a Messiah. What's he scared of? Is a proof that Asu. So you see that people, Beis Shammai school did do Yibum to Tzaras Erva. And that's also a good proof that you see that Beis Shammai acted upon their halacha. The more as a side point, what's the problem? Even though they were chayv krisos, but the Bishua himself happens to hold that imams is only the result of a union of chayv mitzvahs bezdin. It's something which is capital punishment, earthly capital punishment, not heavenly excision. So they still wouldn't be mamzer. First, the Gemara thought the issue was mamzerus. So the Gemara says that nobody was mamzer according to Bishua. Even if he would say the halachas like Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai did the way they did, but at most it's only chayv krisos. He married a brother's wife without a mitzvah of yibum, but it wouldn't be a mamzer according to Bishua. We hold it as a mamzer. We hold chayv krisos is a mamzer. But Bishua himself holds that only chayv mitzvahs bezdin, only capital punishment is chayv mitzvahs. So it would be a mamzer. So the kid wouldn't be a mamzer either. The answer is the nami the mamzer lahavi pagam yohavi. We call the choma me'almana. We'll stop over here. That even though according to Yeshua there's not a mamzer, but even chayv lavin might also be, and surely chayv krisos would be possible to marry Kohanim, like we had before. Rashi quoted it before. Pogrom, and pogrom means they can't marry a Kohanim, and that's going to be the continuation of the sugya. But we'll stop here, and to be continued Rez Hashem tomorrow.
Rebbe, excuse me.